All right, today we're diving into something truly terrifying, something that blurs the line between nightmare and reality. We're talking about sleep paralysis. It's an experience that's spooked people for literally centuries, and in this explainer, we are going to figure out what is really going on behind the scenes. So let me ask you something. Have you ever woken up, you're totally aware of everything, but you can't move a muscle? I mean, not an inch. Your eyes are open, you can see your bedroom, your brain is wide awake and screaming, but your body is just locked, trapped. For a surprising number of people, this isn't just some scary thought experiment. It's real. Yeah, and the experience itself is this perfect storm of fear. First, there's the obvious one, the paralysis. You try to yell, you try to move your arm, anything, and nothing. Zip. Then you get this awful, heavy pressure on your chest, like something is sitting on you, making it hard to breathe. And if that wasn't bad enough, there's this chilling, undeniable feeling that someone or something is in the room with you.
So, what is going on here? How can you be awake inside a nightmare? Let's get into it.
Okay, so here's the scientific breakdown. It's basically a parasomnia, which is just a fancy word for a weird event that happens around sleep. The really key thing to get is that your mind is awake, you are conscious, but your body is still stuck in what's called muscle atonia. And that's the paralysis your brain uses every night to make sure you don't physically act out your dreams, so you don't start sleep punching your pillow. And, it turns out this can happen at two different points in your sleep cycle. The first is called hypnagogic paralysis. That's when it gets you as you're just dozing off. It's actually the less common one. The one most people talk about is hypnopompic paralysis, and that's the one that hits you right as you're waking up from a dream. For forever, people thought this was demons, ghosts, you name it, but the real answer? It's not in some haunted house. It's right inside your own head. It's all about a tiny glitch in your brain's operating system. Seriously, that's the most important takeaway here. It isn't anything supernatural. It's just a simple glitch. Think of it like a desync between your mind and your body. Your consciousness boots up a little too fast before the paralysis program has shut down. The result? An awake mind stuck inside a sleeping body. Let's look at this side by side because this really clears it up. Okay, so in normal REM sleep, your mind is dreaming and your body is paralyzed. Perfect, that's how it's supposed to work. But with sleep paralysis, the body is still paralyzed, but your mind has flipped the switch from dreaming to awake. See that mismatch? That's it, that's the whole source of the problem. All right, the paralysis part kind of makes sense now, right? It's a glitch. But what about the monsters? What about the shadow people and the terrifying figures that people swear they see standing in their room? Where on earth do they come from? This is going to sound wild, but it's absolutely true. That intruder, it's not real. It's not in your room. It's a projection. It's your own brain still half stuck in a dream, basically creating a horror movie and beaming it right onto the real world.
So, how does your brain cook up something so terrifying? Well, it's a three-part recipe. First, you've got leftover bits of your dreams still floating around in your head, leaking into what you're seeing. Second, your fear center, your amygdala, is going absolutely haywire. And third, the part of your brain that's supposed to be the adult in the room, the prefrontal cortex, it's still mostly asleep. So you've got dream logic plus maximum fear minus rational thought. It's the perfect recipe for a monster.
And what about that feeling of being crushed? The demon on your chest? Well, that's not a demon either. During REM sleep, your breathing becomes really shallow and controlled. That's totally normal. But when your conscious mind wakes up and feels that, it panics. It doesn't get what's going on, so it just fills in the blank with the scariest possible explanation. Something is crushing me. Look, if this has happened to you, it's easy to feel like you're the only one, like you're going crazy. But the thing is, you're not alone, not by a long shot. This is a profoundly human experience. It's happened to people all over the world for all of history. How common are we talking? Well, studies estimate that around 8% of people will have this happen at least once. 8%. That's almost one person out of every 12. So yeah, look around the next time you're in a crowd. Chances are you're not the only one who's met the Shadow Man. But here's where it gets really interesting. For some groups, that number is way higher. Take students, for example. Why them? Well, what do students have in common? Yep, a ton of stress and, let's be honest, completely chaotic sleep schedules. And those are two of the biggest triggers. Long before we knew about brain glitches, people had to explain this somehow, right? So every culture came up with its own story. In a lot of old European folklore, it was the old hag pressing down on you. In Japan, they call it kanashibari. In many Middle Eastern traditions, it's the work of a jinn. It's fascinating, right? The same biological event, just wearing a different cultural costume.
Okay, so we've broken down what it is and why it happens. Now for the most important part. What can you actually do about it? How do you fight back?
First things first, know your enemy, or in this case, know the triggers. The big ones are pretty much what you'd expect: not getting enough sleep, being super stressed out, and having a sleep schedule that's all over the place. And here's a weird one: a lot of people say it happens way more when they're sleeping flat on their back. But honestly, the single best weapon you have against sleep paralysis is knowledge. Seriously, the fact that you're watching this, that you're learning what's actually happening in your brain, that's a huge step. It's called psychoeducation. And just knowing that it's a glitch, not a ghost, can take the fear level from a 10 down to a 2. And of course, there's the practical stuff. You can go on the offense by practicing what's called good sleep hygiene. It's not complicated, it just means trying to go to bed and wake up at the same time, even on weekends. Getting enough sleep, period, and maybe skipping that late night coffee or drink that can mess with your sleep. Now, for people who deal with this a lot, there are a few other options. We've already talked about the power of just understanding it. Then there's something called cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, which basically helps train your brain not to panic during an episode. And for really, really severe cases, sometimes medication can be an option, especially if it's tied to another condition like narcolepsy. So leave you with this question. It's a phenomenon that takes the safest place we know, our own bed, and turns it into a horror show. But now that you know it's just a trick of the mind, a glitch in the wiring, could you face it? Because the monster might be a product of your brain, but you know what else is? The power to understand it. And that changes everything.